Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Get Real with Kacey Kasem. It's the podcast taking a look behind the scenes of the fantasy sports industry through interviews with some of your faves in the business. It was an honor to sit down with my guests, yep, plural, for this one. The guests on this episode are Kat and O from the Don't Pour My Milk podcast. I met Kat at the Fantasy Football Expo in 2022, and when he showed me the podcast, my jaw dropped. It is so good that I immediately told Kat that they'd have to join the show. I hope y'all have as great a time learning about these two guys as I did. We talked about a ton of stuff on this episode, including the meaning behind the name Don't Pour My Milk, setting themselves apart from other podcasts, who is the better fantasy football player, finding loopholes in the leagues, why they started playing fantasy football together, plus a lot more. Please make sure to give O and Kat a follow on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Don't Pour My Milk. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheKaceyKasem and the podcast at GetReal_pod. Feel free to contact me on Twitter to let me know that you're listening. I'd love to interact more with the listeners. Get Real is a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, the DAP network if you will. To all of you listeners who have been nothing but supportive throughout the last few years, I appreciate you. This podcast is doing things I never thought possible, and one of my favorite things in the entire world is knowing that it helps others. Believe me, I talk to anyone and everyone who will listen to me talk about this podcast because it means so much to me. I love to learn more about people in this space, and it feels great to be able to talk with so many cool people. Just wanted to say thanks again because I don't say it enough. And also, thank you for the support during the FSWA Awards. Although Get Real didn't end up winning, a huge shout out to former guest Pat Mayo for taking home the honors. And now, here's my conversation with Kat and O from Don't Pour My Milk on Get Real with Kacey Kasem. I'm very excited to have two guests on today. It's a first time thing, actually. I just go one-on-one, but I am excited to have these two fine gentlemen come join me. I'm going to let them go ahead. And since we have two on the show, first and foremost, guys, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to get to talk to you.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
Yeah.
And for the people that are listening, and especially for people who don't actually know who you are right now, but they will, can you go ahead and just let everybody know your name, and then when did you start playing fantasy football?
I'll kick it off, and I don't
Alrighty.
know exactly like the year I started, but I've been doing it for some time, like 10 plus years. I know that. So my name is Kat. They call me Mr. Knockout Fantasy Football. I'm from the Don't Pour My Milk podcast, and I'll let my guy to the side introduce himself.
Well, we have our usual intro where follow me down below, but because I don't see me down below, I'm just going to let you know my handle. It's I am Osahan. You know, you can find that on most platforms, but yeah, I'm the second half of the Don't Pour My Milk platform. Yeah.
I'm okay. So I met Kat Mr. Knockout, you know. I met Kat at the Fantasy Football Expo last year. I'd never met him before. I never knew about the content. And I was like immediately like, whoa, when he told me about the podcast, seeing like how the production on it, how nice and crisp and clean it looks. You guys chopping it up and having a good time, but putting out the advice, just like the perfect kind of podcast, entertainment and everything. Mm-hmm. But before you guys actually started putting out a podcast, how did you guys even meet up and come together to get the idea to put a podcast together?
Kat, you want to take this, or you?
Of course, I love telling this story. So I feel like even like we met through a mutual friend, not in person, by the way, just via like our chat messengers, and we were really at each other's throats. We were rivals. We were rivals, and everyone in our group that played with us, I think they started to look forward to year after year, just seeing us go at it in the chat and messenger group. We would curse each other out. We would tell each other, you know, the other person didn't have the stuff. They couldn't get to the top. I ended up winning them about 4 times, you know, but I'm just going to put that out there. But I always had that.
He's being very nice about it, but we were at each other's throats. Like, can I say shit in the podcast?
You can, yeah, please, by all means.
Talking to the ultimate level. Kat was my equal. And that's how we became friends, because I've never met anybody that can out-talk me until this guy. And it got to the point where through our mutual friend, they thought we were going to fight. I think Kat wasn't, you weren't invited to his baby shower because they thought.
I was not.
Yeah. And I was like, when we got to know each other, we knew that was never going to be the case. It was just that we're ultimate competitors. and that's where we became brothers since then.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Even after that, I know I went through some stuff on my end,
Yeah.
and even like since we knew we were just talking trash, I remember reaching out to me on the side. He was probably one of the few people, who noticed that I wasn't talking as much and just making sure that I was good, right?
Yeah.
And then ever since then, we've been close, right? We talk about life, we talk about like our families, we talk about like what's going on in the world, and then we just had this idea like, hey, this is something that we do on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
and we just talk trash. Why not put something like this out there, right? It's not too many folks that, to tell you the truth, that look like us, right? That put information and put content like that out there. So we wanted to like, be at the forefront of trying our best to like put something together that most folks didn't even think that we would do.
Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about it for years. We're actually in 2 leagues together, right? And the league where I'm the commissioner of is just, once me and Kat got close, I said, okay, come to the big leagues, come to the he knows what I'm talking about, right? And he came over and he noticed that there was everybody was a character. It was one of the most fun fantasy, leagues that he's ever been in. And he was like, we need to find a way to put this, and put it out to the world. And then, I talked to some other guys, but Kat was the one guy that was really serious about it, motivated about it. And we started Don't Pour My Milk.
Yeah. And then Don't Pour My Milk name.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about, because that name is, when you told me that, I was like, huh? Okay, that's intriguing. That interests me. So yeah, how did the name come about?
It came from that league chat, but I'm going to let O talk about it.
Kasem, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
How much milk do you put in your cereal?
Just enough to get. I like my cereal not to be soggy. I like it to be crunchy, so not too much.
See, I like soggy cereal, so I'll fill it up to the brim. The point of that is nobody knows how much milk you put in your cereal. And the milk is what you put into your fantasy team, right? So me and Kat are excellent managers. We are both winners of our leagues this year, but we go about it in different ways, right? So when Kat gives me advice, I'm like, listen, don't pour my milk because you don't know how I build my team. So that's all it was about. Yeah.
I like that. That is super cool to like hear the backstory of that, because the name is just so, it's so different and it's so cool to see that. And the logo too. I really like that logo that you guys have with the milk carton. That's pretty rad.
Thank you.
I think everything that we try to do, especially with the name, is incorporate like stuff that, we got it from like our particular league that we enjoyed the most. We wanted to make sure there was something that was different, that stood out. And we also like the fact that people ask us, what the hell does that mean, right? Because then it creates like interest. And it's like, all right, let me explain this to you. Watch the podcast and you'll see like our differences on opinion, especially on players, strategy, like how we move about throughout the league. O's that like shifty talker that brings you to like the corner in the alleyway and sells you like those gold watches.
I'm a people person. Don't do that, Kat. I'm a politician and a people person. He's a numbers guy, and that's why we can't play each other's milk.
Got you. I got a question though about the milk thing. I had someone from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, Cooter Doodle, come on, and she's a big proponent of, she likes to pour the milk and then the cereal, not the cereal and then the milk. How do you feel? Are you a cereal then milk, or are you a milk then cereal?
I put those people with the people that put ice in their cereal. I don't know what's going on, but listen, it's America. This is America.
That's hilarious. Okay, so you both are in leagues together. Who's better at playing fantasy football?
Kat, let's be honest now, Kat. I'll go get my championship belt. Listen. All right.
I'm gonna speak to how I see it.
Okay.
I do think that I'm a little better than everyone else. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little cocky like that. Right? I'm just gonna put it out there. I think in the cumulative of leagues that me and O have been playing together at the same time, I have won more championships. Right? That's all I'm just saying.
Yeah, let's not do that.
In the tough, I'll give you this. In the toughest league that we're in, though, I have seen O win a championship.
I'm the GOAT.
And O has been to the championship, I think like 4 times since I've been in the league, 3 times since I've been in the league.
Half of the time since the league. Listen, that league is 12 years old, right? That league is 12 years old, and I've been in the championship 6 times, and I won 3 championships.
Okay.
You're putting me up there with LeBron James. I'm just saying that's what.
Yeah, but he got into a lot of things before I got there, right? So I'm just a couple of championships that you did win were championships that you won before I got there. I'm counting it like I'm gonna say what is it AD? So I'm gonna say AK after Cat. All right, after Cat.
Oh man,
but I
he's
think we're on
little
an
asterisks.
I honestly think we're on an equal playing field because I think it's just like why we named it, right? He may take a different approach where I'll just throw numbers at you all day, right? And I'll just start speaking on like what I read about this person and my intuition and I think that's just the way I speak to it. I think O takes the same thing, but then he kind of like he disperses the information out a little different than I do. But I think we're on the equal playing field, to be honest.
I have to give him his flowers. He's a numbers savant. He the game in terms of an analytical point different than anybody I've ever seen, and that's why we're partners because we're just so different. But he's the yin to my yang, and it just makes the thing work.
Oh, that's so cute. Okay, so you guys. You do the podcast and you're together doing a podcast. How did you decide that you wanted to do a podcast where I'm assuming one of you goes somewhere or you both go somewhere, but you guys are in person and a lot of podcasts are just people doing it remotely from their houses and stuff. So what made you guys want to do it in person with each other?
I think we want to focus on the quality of the work and we want to set ourselves apart. There are a lot of podcasts like in every genre, and a lot of the most successful ones are the ones where folks are in the same space. Yeah. So we wanted to take that statistic and put it in our own. It gives an opportunity to change things up while we're together. We get to do different things. We get to see each other's body language, and then we can feed off of that as well. And energy is real, right? When you're in a room with someone, it's totally different than being over a podcast setting.
100%. And people don't know that a lot of work goes in it. Me and Kat live 7 hours away from each other, and the dedication to kind of
that's dedication.
It's a lot of work, but we're so committed to the fantasy community because this is not just a hobby for us. This is something that our wives both know. We take this very, very serious. We're professional in our own right, but there's something about the love of fantasy football that just makes some people drive 7 hours to talk about it.
I love fantasy football, but I'm not sure I love it that much. But so with the podcast, just where did you guys even start when you decided you guys wanted to come together and put out a podcast? What was the first kind of steps that you had to take in order to get the podcast even going?
We thought about logistics initially, right? I think we thought about the quality of work. We ironed that out. We wanted to make sure that we had a nice looking set. So I remember even scouting in Ozone, which spot. Remember, we had 3 different spots that we were looking at to make sure hey, this is really what's gonna speak to the camera when it's on the screen, right? And we also made sure we had a number of topics to talk about, right? Making sure that we had accurate numbers and we were dispersing that out to the crowd. So we just wanted to we covered a lot of our bases, right? We knew that we had to start somewhere, and we didn't want to have any kind of things saying that were going to be roadblocks for us, right? We didn't want to say hey, all right, we don't have this set up, No, we have the fundamentals. We're good right now, and then we'll kind of grow from there. So I think that's how we initially started.
It's to see the quality of the product that you guys put out is incredible. It's a lot. It's so awesome to see the visuals, to see the editing, to see how the cameras change and everything. You don't see that on a lot of podcasts. So having all of that technology and all of the different ways that you go about putting your spin on podcasting, what is the process of having to sit down and edit and do all of that stuff? How long does it take? How did you learn how to do that?
I'm gonna leave that to O because he's the one who does it.
Okay, so me and Kat, we both focus on our strengths, right? So Kat is very organized, right? So we decided, okay, you're gonna come up with content, or we're gonna organize what we're gonna the talking points, and then we'll just freestyle and we do our homework and we come together and we do that. I am more of a creative person, so I said, okay, I'm gonna do the set design. I have a little bit of background in editing and stuff like that. So we just came together and said, you know what? For now to start, let's do a lot of it ourselves. But after we started putting stuff out there, we started having people that were more willing to be part of the team. And it just started growing from there. And then it allowed us to start doing more things like, I don't know if you see our animation stuff that we started putting out. Yeah. So we're just trying to try different things that we're not seeing in the market, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of put out content that's different and fun to look at visually is great. And like the opening for the podcast is great. Like that opening, how did that come about? Just the opening into the podcast. That's so well done.
So we were basically trying to, how can we convey, like our five talking points, right? So we try to, show why, instead of explaining to people, don't pour my milk, right? We was just trying to, show that, we talk shit to each other and this is what this is what we came up with, so we thought it would be cool, like have our own intro.
O's being humble. O's very creative. Like he's extremely creative. He had the idea in his mind for like getting like the background music, even putting us in the black background. I didn't know what the hell he was doing when he told me to spin around.
You're like, okay, I'll spin around.
So he's being extremely humble, but I will tell you that he had the vision for it and he put it together and it came out beautiful. And I was acting like I was in like an award-winning movie. So hey, mom, look at this. I'm in.
I have to say though, the podcast is visually just like awesome. It's one of the best done, and I think more people need to. If you're listening to this podcast, finish this episode and then go on to YouTube because we're going to talk about the importance of YouTube to your podcast and getting that out. YouTube is kind of one of those things that's growing and growing. Obviously, it keeps growing, and there's a lot of different content out there, and there's a lot of different podcasts and everything. But your podcast feels like a show. It feels like you're sitting down watching a TV show with two friends that are, talking back and forth and feeding off of each other, and it's just fun. YouTube is also a place where I hear all this stuff about, the algorithm and this, that, and the other. I don't know very much about YouTube at all. So I love to ask people that come on the podcast that do know about YouTube, how do you get your podcast out to other people? How do you get more eyes and ears on your content?
You want to speak to that? So I'll speak to it a little bit. I think the visuals count, but I think if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, you always hear them saying to like and subscribe, and you'll see us say it on ours as well, right?
Right.
The like and subscribe is key, and I'll tell everyone here, like, just like and subscribe. Subscribe to it because what that does on YouTube is it says, hey, this person likes this video. The hashtags that we use are normally fantasy football like centric. So it's going to push it to others who are looking for content similar to ours, anything about fantasy football. So that increases the views that we have on that particular page. So like when we're sitting there and we're going through it and we're like, you'll notice we say it like a few times throughout the episode. That's what really kind of like helps, right? It really kind of pushes that algorithm in the right space, so you can see it as soon as like you're logging on YouTube, and it'll kind of play it as a suggestion, or even play it after you're watching your content that we're actually looking for, because it's saying you might like this, and that's how right now. I think initially what we got was a lot of family and friends who were very like excited for us to like jump on the podcast, but it's grown every so often. We see like a little surge in like our subscribers. We see a surge in our followers and just the viewers who kind of take a look and see like, what is this all about? And we try to keep it funny. We try to keep it like sweet and to the point, so you get all your information and you stay engaged. But that's what we're pushing for, man. Like YouTube is great. Like you mentioned it, YouTube is like a great field for folks to get noticed. But when you open up your store, we got to make sure we're marketing as much as we can to like make sure you can come into it.
Is the podcast, do you guys focus mainly on Dynasty, Redraft, both? How do you put out the content? What kind of content do you put out exactly?
Yeah, we focus
redraft, right?
Yeah, we focus mostly on redraft. We talk about even like keepers if someone's in a keeper, not necessarily dynasty throughout the year. We want to go on like on just to mainstream what most people do. You know, dynasty will be awesome if like that becomes like something that's like huge.
Yeah.
I know it's growing and growing. Same thing like IDP. Can't wait for that to get to a space like that. But right now, redraft, redraft is everything, and we kind of base everything on PPR standards now because that's the new standard. It's no longer like just like not counting the receptions, so it's usually like full point PPR. Redraft leagues, and that's what we kind of speak to the crowd about.
And you both can answer this. One of you can answer it. It doesn't matter. But when you put out the content, how do you decide what topic you guys are going to talk about on a specific episode?
So that's what we were talking about before. Everybody is starring in their role, right? So Kat usually comes with a game plan every episode and says, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And then together we collaborate and we kind of break it down. Okay, this is what you're going to talk about. This is my talking points. This is your talking points. And then we turn the cameras and then sometimes we throw it out the window and it's just two guys talking, shooting the shit. You know what I mean? So, and that's the beautiful thing about our, show, our podcast is that it's just a conversation between two boys talking about fantasy. And we're trying to let the audience into our headspace and understand how we think and how we process. Why do we pick up these players? Why do we, draft certain players? And sometimes it's just a conversation, and I think that's what a lot of people started to like about the podcast. It's like it's just two guys talking about fantasy.
Yeah, and it's real too. Like sometimes if you even watch it and you see I get animated about like someone that doesn't agree with, I'll be like, how can you not like see what I'm saying in regards to this particular player? It's all real. We try to capture like real emotions. We'll do an overview prior to like shooting out. But when we get on the camera, it's just us speaking. Like we'll have like some talking points, but we don't have like a planned script. It's mainly like this is what I believe, this is what O believes. This is how you can like substantiate what we're speaking on. But you have to ultimately make that decision to go after it. And I know one of the things that always comes up, and people always ask me, like, all right, Kat, you say pick up all these players, but how can you have them on one team? You cannot. Like I get like if we talk about drafting or pickups, it's how you kind of structure out your team, right? We talk about the structure of like what you do. I don't really like to even talking about like the first 5 draft picks that you have because I feel like it should be easy for anyone to pick the first 5 like in a 12-man, 14-man league, right? I say pick whoever you want to pick, but I'm going to give you gems from 6 down that I believe are going to catapult your team, right? Because there's so many great players in the NFL. So you can't go, in my opinion, this is my opinion. If you're a real fantasy, you cannot go wrong with your first 5 picks, right? So I say to you, like, after you can't, I don't feel
this is the part of the show. This is why we fundamentally disagree. You can go wrong with your first 5 picks because it happens.
I don't think so. Not if you structure your team correctly. Like I know we played in the league. I'll give you a little insight. We played in the league where I used 3 of my first 5 picks to trade and build my team after I had injuries all around, right? So I used those picks that I had to really surround my team with stronger players that would put me in positions to get to like the playoffs, right? I had to do what I had to do. And I knew the first 5 that I had were gems, right? I knew that they were like going to be standard. People were going to see like no matter what, if I got into trouble, I could move them and I could just pick up my team. I got to get a quarterback out of it. I picked up a tight end that I shouldn't have picked up, but
yeah, that's the league that I won this year, right? I'm just saying. So this is the point of the show. So it's like that is trying to indoctrinate us in his philosophy. So that works sometimes.
You're right.
It hasn't been proven in the major leagues yet. What he says.
And I believe what happens in the league that Osahan won is that Osa has a lot of clout. right? And I put it out there, and I actually do it on purpose, right? I do it so when people listen to us, they understand.
This year. Fault against me.
They understand what he does. He's the smoothest talker. Like if I was in the club and I was like, it was me and him going after the same person, I think he would get him because I can't talk like how O talks. O whispers in people's ears.
I don't know what the inside of a club looks like.
We're talking about our teenage years, right? So I can't talk to another manager in the same way that O talks. O is very smooth. He's very strategic in regards to training and building up his team. That is not my thing. And my issue that I'm very self-aware is that I do speak a lot and I talk about numbers. So when I try to trade someone in our league, they always wonder, what the hell do you know about that player that I don't know?
So this is the disadvantage that we have for trying to give the people a good show, right?
Yeah.
Often show our hands, right? And we're in a league full of like savages, right? Like people that have no behavior at all, right? And they'll take the notes. Sorry. So
you're getting.
They'll take notes, and we actually have one guy that literally watched every episode and built his whole team based on our advice.
Oh, wow.
And then tried to lie that he didn't listen to the podcast. He said he watched it with the sound off. I'm like, bro.
With the captions on.
But, that's the disadvantage. But we love fantasy so much that we're willing to show our cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people do that, like actually listen to the podcast that they're in leagues with those people, listen to their podcast to kind of get, because I'll do that every now and then. I'll hear somebody on a podcast that I'm in a league with say something about a player they like. And I'm like, are they trying to, like, they're not lying to their fans. So, okay, maybe I can try to trade this dude to him. So,
but that people love Cat like advice so much that people even myself, when I'm doing business with Cat, I second guess myself and we create the content together. So he's very smart in that way where you're like, Cat, like he tried to get me to pick up OBJ this year. And I was like, Cat, is this something I don't know? And mind you, he never played a lick this whole season. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was listening or watching the unwritten rules of fantasy football, and I know that Cat likes to build up guys, like say, nice pickup you had there, and all this stuff. the psychological warfare that goes on.
That's exactly what I do. I try my best. I try my best to like let folks know I'm on your side, and I've learned a lot from O and just watching from afar, right? And kind of like becoming not just like fake friends, but making sure like, your interests are my interests, and then we just can come together.
Talk about it, Cat. Casey, listen, something. You're right, Cat. But what I try to teach Cat is that you have to treat fantasy like politics. There's no permanent friend, no permanent enemy, only permanent interest, right? And if you can do that, you can make a deal with anybody and you can have your milk poured this way you want. But a lot of people they fall in love with players. They have enemies that they don't want to deal with. And the ultimate goal is to win. So I try to teach that to Cat. He saw that I won this year, so it works.
It works.
He's going to keep on saying that throughout the podcast. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But he also has an advantage.
Cat. That's what I'm saying.
He also has an advantage being a commissioner, right? He's the commissioner of that league. So I'm in the weeds and I hold my own and I make enemies. People don't like me, Casey. Like we got a couple of folks.
I'm very fair as a commissioner.
I'm not saying you're not fair. I'm just saying like I'm more in the chats going up against people. Like I talk trash. Like that's one of the I love it. I make music videos about people. I do a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't even matter. Like I will make I will make you feel bad if you lost to me. So so I think it's a good part of like our league. No one really takes me that serious, but I also like no one wants to see me win because they're like, no, if Cat wins, we're never gonna hear the end of it.
So, and when they beat you, do they like get up in your face about it?
I get it. I think the creativity that I have with the trash talk that I give is a little different. Because I'll come at someone and I'll know where to hit them real hard, so they feel it for some time and it stings, but they will let me know. Like they will, they will let me know. They will
That is like,
definitely let me
those
know.
kids that know exactly what your insecurities are. Like, oh, look at that guy. He has women thighs. And I'm like, bro, that guy knows exactly what it is. And he knows how to get under people's skin. And that's first round exits,
But I do it for all fun, and I think it makes our league fun. It
Yeah.
makes it very interesting, and that's the role that I play in it.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for people who are in leagues that aren't as active and aren't as fun? What would you suggest that they do to kind of make it more interesting and get more people to like actually participate?
For me, it's the chat. I think it's the communication. Yep. I feel like if they could pick up the communication and spice that up a bit, where like everyone may not be a trash talkers, but there may be a common interest, right?
Right.
That kind of entices folks to look and see, because it's that background talk that makes like the league that much better, right? Because you start to learn things about people, their interests, and we talk about random things on some days, but then we bring it back to fantasy when it needs to come back to fantasy. And if you can get that chat, that message, whatever you're using, that messaging tool to be active, that'll be the difference maker, in my opinion.
And I think that has a lot to do with like the commissioner as well, because we're in a bunch of leagues together, and some of them are dry, and there's no trash talking, but some of them they don't trash but talk, but it's competitive. So it's really up to the commissioner. Like me, I take it like I'm Vince McMahon, right? It's just wrestling. I create narratives, and the reason why I do that is because it keeps the people wanting to come back. So you have to. This fantasy thing is like a stress reliever for us, right? So we have to treat it like entertainment. Some people take these things too serious, so we always create like little, narratives in our league that just keeps people engaged. And it's very important if you're a commissioner, or if you're the person that's very outgoing in your league, create narratives, create like things that make people want to come back, because that's what makes it more fun. Because when something is on the line, when you want to beat somebody, that's what makes the season fun.
Yeah. Oh, like the commissioner part of fantasy football, I think people don't look at it as much as they should, to see like, hey, commish, if you want to do something to liven up the league, you have that power to kind of make it fun, make it good. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Are you guys in a bunch of leagues? How many leagues are the types of people that know how many leagues you're in, or do you not keep track?
Together, we're in 3 now. We have 3 leagues that we play together consistently. Prior to like last year, it was just 2 that we were in together, but we wanted to open up a new one that I won the first year. Just putting that out there.
He's the commissioner in that league. Went well.
Okay.
IDP league. We wanted to see how it is, because in order for us to talk about things, we have to, try it out and see.
Right.
He's been doing it for like 50 years now, right?
I love all aspects of football, even the defensive parts of it, and it's just like going through like the IDP leagues don't get enough love because it's a little more comprehensive. You have to, but I think after like going through like a year of it, I think everyone should try it out. Just try it out. You never go back, right? Because you start to like, dang, there's no part of the game that I won't be interested in, right? You'll find out defensive players who's getting more tackles, and it makes you a better student of the game. So how another player is going to fare if like, all right, Sauce Gardner's playing against Devontae Adams, and you start to research how many times they've actually played, or if he's ever played like anyone in that particular type of offense, and then you figure out his numbers, and it becomes a big thing, and it makes you that much better in fantasy.
Yeah, but you gotta really love fantasy to do it.
Yeah. He said you'll never go back. I'm like, yeah, I went back after I did IDV, and I was like, yeah, nah. But you gotta try it out though to see if you like it or not. So maybe if I would have stuck with it longer, then maybe.
Yeah, we got to get you in the league, Casey. I'm telling you, you'll be surprised by some of the things that come up.
It's tough though, because the what was it called? The draft was like 18 hours, man.
Whoa. That's a lot of time. Where do you guys find all this time?
What I had to do is understand, like, because we had so many players to draft on both offense and defense, you had to cut that draft time down, like the pick time. And then I'm going to keep it consistently to 30 seconds when we draft. So it doesn't like take too long. That minute, it's not going, it's not a fun time when you have like 16 managers drafted for an IDP league.
Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to fantasy football that people do that just like something that just bugs you?
Yeah, my pet peeve is when I know like two best friends trade each other consistently on the like they're friends, and then you see like someone like Devontae Adams going for I don't know, let's pick out a random like Jacoby Myers, right? So you guys have a trade like that, and then they look at you like, what? You don't know what I need? And I'm like, this is
you don't need that.
Like, come on, man. Like, we this is not a fair trade, And I'm a big advocate for trades to happen. It just spices up the league. So it sucks when folks take advantage of it, and then you know what, my team is not doing too well, so let me help my friend out and give him like a star on his squad, right? That's my biggest pet peeve.
But that's why, like I said, it falls back to commissioners. I feel like what we did in the last couple of years is we went against tanking, right? A lot of that was one of my biggest pet peeves as a fantasy player. Like, oh, how do we stop tanking? So we gave incentives, you know what I mean? Like we started giving what was the one that we started a couple of years ago? Where the manager with the highest points gets payouts every week. So even if you're having a losing season, you have incentive to try and win that week to try to recoup some of the money or make some money in the year. So yeah, it really drastically like diminished people trying to give friendship trades, things like that. So you just have to be creative as a commissioner and league participants to see how you can stop stuff like that happening.
Do you guys play any other fantasy sports besides fantasy football, or is fantasy football all you play?
We tried.
Yeah.
It's worse than IDP, man. It's like, wait, how many games you gotta play?
Yeah,
it's a lot. Yeah.
No, I get that. I tried to play fantasy baseball for a while, and I was like,
that's even worse, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot. Do you guys, have you had a relationship with sports for a while? Did you watch sports growing up?
Yeah, I love sports. I fell in love with football when I was young. I played Pop Warner football for a little bit. And since the early 90s, I've been in love with football. And the reason why, like, to go back to what we was talking about earlier, the reason why fantasy football works as opposed to baseball and basketball is because football is an event, right? It's once a week, so everything feels like it's on the line. And that event is what made me fall in love with the sport and fell in love with fantasy.
Same here. I think I've always been an athlete since being a kid, playing football, playing basketball. I mean, I have.
You're like, look, it's thanks.
I'm agreeing with you.
Various teams play, and you look for ways to improve when you're playing. You look at the real live like players, and you try to mimic them as kids, right? Like whether you're trying to run like Barry Sanders or you're trying to hit a baseball like Darryl Strawberry, or just mimic like what they do to like get better. You start to like, I think that kind of falls in line with like the love of fantasy, because you watch players, and although we're at an age where we can't mimic them, we can basically manage them on our teams and like wish them luck almost, right? That's what we're doing. We're trying to send them positive vibes to do well. Like, all right, you're my player. I got you. I'm following you the whole season, and I need you to this to be like a year that you kind of like go crazy. So I think that's what it kind of boils down to for me.
We believe in chakra. We send them out chakra.
Do you?
Well, fantasy makes evil too, Kat. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I wish those guys would be like, let them get banged up for this game. Next game, come back. So,
do either of you or both of you? Do you have a player that you've become a fan of because of fantasy football?
Yeah, every year.
I think I know he's a big time right now. He's considered like the best quarterback like to ever play. But Patrick Mahomes, I drafted him his first year playing, and I drafted him in multiple leagues in like low rounds. And it's kind of like I remember seeing him play towards the end of the year when he filled in for Alex Smith. I think it was like week 17 or 16 or whatever in the NFL, and I just saw him playing. And in the following year, I was like, I'm gonna get that player. I was like, no one like understood in my mind. With Alex Smith's numbers and Patrick Mahomes, like just learning the offense, I said to myself, "Hey, this kid could really do well if his arm strength is what they're actually speaking about." And that year, I won almost every league because of him. So, like, I do try my best to get him in most leagues that I play in. Some people have noticed. And so they take him now. But I know he's actually one of my like favorite players to get on my squad.
Yeah. See, like fantasy football it allows us to play like Stephen A, Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp. It makes us feel like we're analysts. So, we start falling in love with the picks that we make because we want to be right. So when you're right, you start falling in love with certain players. Like this year was ETN. He was my keeper last year, and he took me to a championship. So yes, to answer your question is yes, we do fall in love with players that help us win.
Right. You can't get too emotionally invested. You can just get
we have an episode on that, by the way.
Go check that out.
Yeah.
Let's see. I brought up the expo earlier because that's how I met Kat in the first place, and networking is important in the fantasy football industry, in the fantasy sports industry. Getting your name out there, learning from others, kind of building relationships. How do you network with people? What are the ways that you go about it where it doesn't come off as like I'm trying to get something from you, but you're trying to make a long-lasting relationship with those people?
I think the expo was like the start, right? I got introduced to a lot of different folks while we were down there. Even meeting someone like yourself and just talking about like the love and like how great it was to be around people of like the same like-mindedness, and being there to celebrate like fantasy football, which is not something that everyone really gets, right? It's just not something that people really get. So I think what we try to do, we try to just stay in their DMs, say hello, make sure that we're fans of like their work as well. I think it worked with with most folks. They just to talk to them about what they use, and like how they've like propelled themselves to where they are, and to let them know that we're rooting for them, and we want the same thing. And most folks within the fantasy world are similar. They're just like, hey, you guys are doing well. Just keep it up. I tried this, I saw this, and I think it'll work well for you. And I think that's what we have to do more of, is just be consistent with the outreach, because I don't think a lot of folks, I haven't gotten it yet. Most people that I've reached out to and talked to just are usually like receptive, and sharing knowledge the best way that they can. That's one thing that I love about the fantasy football community, right? Like everyone's just not out for themselves, because it doesn't really benefit you to be out for yourself. They're like, hey, like, what do you need? And sure, like, this is what I use, and the information's out there, and it's just about putting effort in afterwards.
We're all on the same team, we treat it like a culture, like a religion that we all practice, and once we just kind of look at certain strategic partnerships, and we just remind each other, like, we're playing to spread the love of fantasy. This is why we're in it. So for the most part, when we talk to people like you, and we connect based on our love of fantasy. So for the most part, it's been like that, and we hope that it continues.
Yeah, I've been in the space, not putting out content, but just seeing how it's grown and grown and grown on all different platforms and how it's getting even bigger. You know, there's TikToks and Instagram and YouTube and so many different avenues to go about putting out your content. It's just really cool to see the industry come together like it does with the fantasy community, because it's it's crazy, because every now and then people will say something like, isn't it like those are your competitors? But they're not really your competitors, like you were explaining. So yes.
Yeah.
And I had a blast at the expo, getting to know people and getting to talk to so many different people that I never even knew existed. It's crazy to see how many people there are out there that I just haven't even heard of before, and how they didn't know me. And it's just to see that many people, it's so cool.
Yeah, it was wild. Like we saw people that was creating fantasy currency, and I was like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm creating fantasy currency, and you have one that's like strictly just like about interviewing on Twitter and making sure they can put the content out, and that's about it. Like, there were just so many different facets of like folks who have like maybe like 1 million followers to someone who has like 10, right? And it didn't matter. It was just like, hey, we're on the same playing field. Let's just talk and let's chop it up and let's enjoy the weekend together. So I think, more communities like that need to exist. Fantasy football is one that, I enjoy. I look forward to like the NFL season. I look forward to like the NFL draft because of it, because it kind of gives me a little buzz of like where these rookie players are going and like how they're going to reshape teams and who's going to be out of a job. And okay, well, now I have to do my rankings. It's like, it's so wild, like just the seasons of the NFL and how you can like put your stamp on it.
So, you're gonna come next time? Yes, you're gonna be there. We're gonna force you. Like, we're just gonna have to make you come. So you have to come to the expo.
I'm already there.
Okay. We're gonna make sure it'll be a good time. I promise. So when you joined the industry, when you joined the community, when you joined putting out, when you put out all this content, did you have any people that you looked up to that were like guys or gals or whatever that you were looking at and you were like, I really admire the work that this person puts out?
There's so many people out there, right? I know for myself, being just a reviewer and like doing my homework, I know the headliners were a group that I love, and I got a chance to meet them at the expo, and then they gave me some gems while we were there. The footballers, I think everyone knows them. Like, it's just like who doesn't know them by now? If you're into fantasy football, you're gonna hear from them. And I think what we kind of want to do for ourselves is we don't want to be like them. To be honest, we want to be like Don't Pour My Milk. We want to be the group that folks come on to, and like, all right, when you ask that question to your next guest, oh yeah, I saw the Don't Pour My Milk podcast, and this made me want to join the fantasy community because it was awesome just watching them go through the content, learning about football, and then also laughing at the same time.
Yeah,
it's incredible to see. Like, you brought up the different groups of people, and you brought up earlier about how you guys are in the same spot, and like the footballers do the same thing. They're in the same spot in the same room, and you can feel the energy coming off of them. So that I see that kind of as a parallel, where having somebody versus like doing a solo show. Have you ever considered doing solo shows, or have you ever, sat down and did like a short solo,
I think
podcast?
Just to put out information, like real quick information, I think we could do that solo. But I think for the larger part, I think it works with me and O being in the same space, right? I think just the energy and the dynamic, and like I said, I'm actually like, people won't know. I'll say it over and over again, and people just won't believe me that I'm actually really quiet. But O kind of gets me out of my shell, and then I get really animated. And just like being in that same space, it creates a different dynamic, and we try our best to spice it up, have guests on the show, bring in like a different point of view, and I just think that dynamic, it just offers something a little different than what normal shows do or normal podcasts do on a regular basis. And I think that's our formula for right now, but we can always improve the formula, right? We can always add to it as we move along, just to try our best to get the information out there to whomever needs it.
We're not afraid to challenge ourselves. We're not afraid to be challenged. And it's the formula that we have. We feed off each other's energy. and we're going to continue to do that. We have tried doing some shorts, to just kind of, fantasy is a very particular thing because you need to have like up-to-date information. So that is a way to kind of give the viewers, what we're thinking at the moment, to kind of give them the, information quickly. But, for the most part, we just kind of love the show aspect of it,
Being a part of the fantasy football community and being, you don't look like you're not the, white guy that, they all, you know what I mean? Like every time a white guy comes on the show, they're like, everybody looks like me, right? In this industry. And you guys are like kind of somebody that people of color can look up to and be like, wow, I can do this too. How important is it to, be somebody representing that and trying to get more people involved in the fantasy space?
I think it's something that we wanted. I think it was something that we thought about, like, to be honest. And then we knew, like, just going into it, there weren't too many people that looked like us. And we wanted to, like, build something where someone who was interested that looked like us would feel comfortable jumping into, right? Knowing that, there's more folks in that particular type of space, right? It's similar to like even yourself, right? Being a woman in the space is different, right? You don't see too much of it, but when you do see it, you just want to make sure, like, number one, then we both tell each other ourselves, we don't want to fuck up. I don't like, we don't curse much, but we just like, all right, let's just make sure we're doing it the right way, right? Because you have like that inside voice with that little anxiety telling you, all right, we got to do it the right way, and we have to do it like, that's why we focus a lot on the quality of the work that we put out there. We weren't going to put anything that was going to be like staticky. We want to make sure we have graphics. We want to make sure we have like funny skits in there. So that's one part of it, but you're right. Like when you did do your research, you don't see a lot of folks that look like us, right? So we want to stand out in that particular way. We want to make sure that we know it's an inclusive space. Everyone, like I said before, like that we've met has been nothing but inviting. But sometimes it takes a couple of folks just to make those first steps, so you feel more empowered to do so, and then they can use us as a blueprint.
And we put out the content that we want to see. We first started, we talked about it. We said there isn't a lot of us doing this thing. In fact, I didn't see many of us doing it at all. But it was important for us to represent ourselves well. And, we enjoy each other's company and each other's humor, and we just said, you know what, let's put it out there. And the feedback has been good, because people want to see that. People think like that. People talk like us. People reason like us, and they want to be able to see a representation of that. And we're just trying to give the people what they want.
That's awesome. I mean, it really is, and it's cool to see how many people are coming into this space that are, I've like interviewed like Ray Garvin and Troy King, and it's just cool to see all these new. I say new because I've been on fantasy Twitter since like 2012 or something. And so I've seen all the, you see the waves of people coming in, and it's really cool to see everybody come up and do such an awesome job with the content, including you guys. Like if I wouldn't have gone to the expo and met Kat, then I wouldn't probably even really find out about you guys as quickly as I did. So it's just, it all works out so nicely.
Yeah.
And you guys are both New York Giants fans. Is that correct?
I'm a New York Giant fan.
Okay, you're a New York Giants fan.
I was a bigger New York Giant fan.
That was the stories. I don't know if you have seen.
I'm a Giants fan, but I think O's a little more invested than I am, because I'm so invested in fantasy that it's tough for me to kind of latch on to like a team so hard. But I am a Giants fan. I grew up in New York, so that was the team I was rooting for. To be honest, the Jets were never that great, so it was like it was the Giants. It was the Giants for me.
I'm a Cowboys fan, so but it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
I feel your pain. It's all right.
I give you your props because you're from New York, and you're you guys are from the area, New Jersey, New York, and all that. So it's when I see Giants fans that aren't from the area where I'm like, okay, I don't understand that. But it's the same for Cowboys fans, though. They're everywhere. They don't know how to just.
They are. You all keep dreaming.
One day it's bound to happen, right? Like I left 5 years old last, you know. It's like,
I don't know.
How are you guys? Since you guys know so much about players, how and you're Giants fans, how do you guys feel about Daniel Jones as your quarterback?
Can I no comment it or
you can do whatever you want.
Danny Nichols or is it Dime still? You know what it is?
He's trying to get some dimes right now.
Pat, take this one.
I think they can't pay him. Number one, you got to be smart about it. He was coming into his own. I truly think Daniel Jones has the skill set to be a really good quarterback. He just has to put his skills with his decision making, and then you'll see everything come together. They did a great job of putting him in a lot of different positions to be successful, and you saw that in his fantasy numbers towards the tail end of the season. It all married up, right? But he has to be consistent. And the trouble with most folks is that you have to see that consistency first before you kind of don him like the next thing in New York. Yeah. So I would say I don't think he's bad at all. I really feel like if he can continue where he left off, he'll be exactly what New York needs. And then they just need to move around and get him some capable weapons, because a running back of Saquon Barkley's caliber can only do but so much, right? That signing of Kenny Golladay was kind of crazy that he never ever came to fruition for them, and they had to drop his contract just to make headway, and it sucks, right? Because you take a chance on someone. No quarrels with Kenny Golladay. He got paid, but he didn't do groceries. That's all I'm saying. It was kind of he got the money, but he didn't do what he was supposed to do while he was there. But if they can get Jones some viable weapons on the outside, I definitely see them doing some things and turning up another gear next year, right? His skill set is there. He's mobile. Mm-hmm. He has a good arm. He has okay accuracy, but he's turnover prone. Right. And that's what his problem was. And then as he reduced it and they put him in different positions, you saw that the team was winning and winning and winning. If he can just get rid of the turnovers, it sounds simple enough, but it's all about how they spread the love on the field and whoever they put there. If you see they get a high caliber wide receiver, watch out. Right. Because every position matters. Right. Mm-hmm. And you already have some folks you already got some good complimentary players on the team, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't get a chance to see what's the slot receiver, the rookie that just came in this year that got hurt. I drafted him, but I can't. His name is not coming to me. They have some nice pieces, right? Richie James was playing well. I'm not sure of how Sterling Shepard's going to come back because he's been hurt a lot. But you still got Slayton. You have some nice complementary pieces. You do need a couple more plays to take you over the top. And I think he'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
Improve that defense. Give him some time to rest. Let him come back, get in this flow of things. You have a mobile quarterback who has the skill set to be great. And he can be a Giants legend. That's what he has to keep in the back of his mind. So in my opinion, they give him 3 years, next 3-year contract. Let's see what else he has under his belt. They can restructure it in another couple of years. And then, my man Brian Dable could just, do what he came to do, which is win a Super Bowl. I'm rooting for the Giants.
I took a big L with Kenny Golladay. I was like, okay, all he needs, he's going to go to the Giants and then everything's going to align up and it's going to be great. Even though I don't like the Giants, but for fantasy purposes, I was like, okay, cool. And then, you see how that worked out.
Yeah.
So. I was just, sometimes you just hope. Sometimes you hold on to guys for too long.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. I think I loved what the Giants did this year was that they got rid of especially injury prone receivers, right? So you dropped Kenny Golladay, even though Kadarius Toney's a talent, he was getting hurt. He's been hurt college and at pros. You don't want to deal with that. And he could be a good wide receiver. if I watch him how he plays, how he prepares himself in the offseason, if he does what he's supposed to do, I hate to see him turn into like a Percy Harvin type player, like who had all the skills in the world. You see flashes of it, but then Tony. I'm talking about Tony in Kansas City now, right? I think the Giants did a good job of dropping him because I think he was going to be a focal point, but he's not in to make a splash and make an impact. And Jones needs some healthy players. He needs a AJ Brown. He needs a Devontae Adams. I know I mentioned him a lot because he's one of my favorite players. He needs a Cooper Kupp. He needs someone that's gonna be in there to like make a splash.
Yeah. Enough talking football. I want to know what you guys like to do in your free time. So when you have free time and it's not fantasy football, but you have other things that you like to do, what are some of your hobbies or things that you like to do?
Myself, my thing is my family. I spend time with them, hang out with them, and I like to study. Like study, go to the gym, stuff like that. Like I'm big on learning like new applications in the tech world. And just understanding like how they work, even if it's like a marketing tool. Like right now, I'm just trying to learn how something called HubSpot works. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but just having used that ticketing system in some time and trying to see like if it'll benefit me in the workspace. And I kind of like I enjoy that. So like you won't find too many folks who just enjoy like studying while they're home and reviewing things, but that's me.
And the same thing for me. I'm a family man. A wife. 3 kids, so I have a business and stuff like that. So when I'm not working, I try to spend as much time as possible with the kids, watch Marvel movies, take them to the movies, play ball with my sons, and just kind of keep it light, for the most part, because life is challenging as it is.
Yeah.
Just kind of enjoy life, sitting back to enjoy life a little bit.
This is about fantasy football, but it's not about fantasy football. Is there a specific like rule, like a wrinkle or something crazy about a league, something that's kind of out there that you really enjoy that's maybe not as mainstream as it is like a regular PPR league or whatever? Is there something that's a little off that you really like?
I like just figuring out loopholes, like right. Like I like figuring out all the loopholes to whatever we're utilizing. So like whether it be like I don't know, I'll give you a situation. Someone needs a quarterback. I'll pick up 5 of them on my bench and then make sure like the person can't get a quarterback. Or like I'll call somebody and be like, hey, I need you to do me a favor and pick up this quarterback. So it'll block someone else from getting them on the other.
Phone calls are real.
That is wow. This man he came to play, like he's
phone calls
calling you up. Wow.
It's a thing.
It is just figuring out all the ways you can really stick it to someone. Like, hey, you want this? All right, you guys make side deals. What I learned from O, he's you can make side deals, right there. That can be an episode. What I learned from O. All right, I'm gonna do that. You can make side deals. You can say, hey, listen, today what I need you to do is go after this player because I can't get him. My bench is filled, but I see that you have the space and someone to drop. If you get him, talk to me in a couple of weeks. You may be able to do some business.
For that, right? Somebody called me during the season, accusing me, and I said, I plead the fifth.
Oh man, guys, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, but it's been a blast getting to talk to both of you, like getting to know you, getting to know you, Kat. Like that. Thank you so much for coming by the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate being on the show. This was fun. This is what we love, just having
conversations. This is like a conversation, yeah.
Yeah, and it is just like a conversation, and I can feel the energy that you guys have during your show on this show. So I appreciate you guys coming on and like really bringing it because, keep the audience engaged.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and let you guys plug where you're located, what you guys have going on, where they can find everything. So whoever wants to go first. Oh, if you want to go first, Kat, whoever, I don't care. But go ahead and plug whatever.
Close us out,
sure. God, listen, it's Mr. Knockout Fantasy Football. Okay. You can find us on Instagram at Don't Pour My Milk. You can find us on YouTube at Don't Pour My Milk. You can find us on Twitter and TikTok at Don't Pour My Milk. Feel free to like, share, comment, and follow us on all platforms.
Sure.
We love what we do. We appreciate all of you. Let's all connect.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my man down below. You want to say something?
Follow me at I am Usaha, and follow us on Dope on My Milk on all platforms, like Kat said. And Kacey, we would love to have you too. So that would be kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I would definitely be down for that. Yeah, definitely.
We need to schedule something. Yep.
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. If you're listening right now, I appreciate it so much. You guys don't even know. I know that I say this all the time, but listening to this podcast and letting me know that you listen, like that's the most rewarding thing for me, is to have people tell me that they listened and that they learned something. So thank you guys again for listening, and make sure that you come back next time for another episode of Get Real with Kacey Kasem, and remember to stay rad.